Dragon World. 7 disciplines. Dragon World. Our days are haunted with dragons. We have heard bewildering sounds we cannot explain away. We have seen shadows in the sky and blurred forms moving across bare wooden floors. We have tried to dismiss these things as absurd daydreams, but something is there. We may call them dragons, for want of a better word. Understand me. These are not what knights would slay for the love of maidens standing on distant shores. These are here now. I encountered one today, or what I thought was one. My house swayed for a full minute, and though we commonly say such things are earthquakes, who knows what roars under the ground? Who knows why mountains sway? When a clock stops, we think we know the cause, but no one knows what God the clock obeyed. And when the wind blows unlatched doors silently open, we wonder who is there. But nobody enters, and we somehow pause in our conversations because we feel afraid something is creeping round the room on bandaged claws. We sometimes love, and sometimes, when betrayed, we feel black monster passions flame and tear the linings of our minds. The white-hot blade of longing is a dragon-founded sword, and jealousy, anger, and pain will never fade, and nothing will diminish our despair until these creatures end their dragonade. A genius at the keyboard can hardly bear the clanging dragon sounding in every chord, and master painters half insanely stare at the rainbow worms of oil that seem to writhe on their palettes like a gorgon's hair. A grey-haired poet weeps over the vast hoard of bitter words entrusted to his care. Dragons are the world's masters. The Lord of all creation is a dragon, whose scheme is to stop us somehow from becoming bored of this miracle life which first stirred in the sea kingdoms. For centuries it's warred against men who have forgotten how to dream. It longs for simple human wonder to be restored. For without dragons, the courageous gleam in the eyes of men will soon be slurred over with the smoke of cities and the steam of winding turbines out of control. And grey stones will grow in our brains, and the theme of our last song will perish like a white bird lost in wild seas where petrels used to scream. Earshot. Earshot, dragons in the spiral sounds of my mind constantly seethe and churn. And though I've tried, I cannot ignore them, and neither can I find out how they afflict my ears. sibilant mist veils their muted forms, like the white horses behind the sad shoulders of breakers. They half hide, mocking my wounded ears, and my inner eyes are blind. I hear them like distant drums on a mountainside, and standing on the wide, wind-swept shore of Wales, I've paused to listen. But then the sounds have died, or have changed to the mere murmur of waves, or the single cries of seagulls who ride on the tendons of the wind. And my ear fails to catch the meanings in the music of the tide. Far inland I still hear them, far from gales, in quiet rooms, and my sleet-blurred brain craves to find weapons to silence their surf-tongued wails before the clans of my sound mind turn insane. For these are not dragons with blue-green scales. These are not guardians of lanterned treasure caves. These are not the fireworms of ancient tales. These are the ear-shot dragons of my mind's enclaves. They erode men's words, and the words remain half heard as I listen. And then my intellect raves, not comprehending, not able to comprehend if those who speak are saints or silk-tongued knaves. Deep down in the ringing tunnels of my brain, the dragons laugh as moguls laugh at slaves. I am hard of hearing. The ocean's refrain is faint in the shells of my ears. Sometimes I pretend I have heard it, and pretense is a constant pain. For often in these smudged acoustics I can hear the earworm's guttural scorn. Like storm-driven rain, their mad, whistling, despair-bearing cries contend with the masters of my mind in jarring disdain. They have made an enemy seem to be a friend. They have poisoned love for those I hold dear, so that often, meaning to be gentle, I offend kind men, and make the world I live in seem unkind. In silent corridors, where I often have to spend lonely hours, in crowded halls full of cheer where I am half lost, the gong harsh thunders never end. Yet, though these drum-driven worms coldly persevere, they cannot succeed. Though they hourly grind against the tender ferns of each tormented ear, they cannot break my will. Here I abide, and braving the conscious shores, I feel no fear. Though these skull-bound dragons howl, I am not resigned, nor shall they ever win from me a single shining tear. Dragon young. The eyes of the young are black, like light in a well when a lantern shines on the water. Likewise as cold, as fresh, as necessary. The sound of a bell hung in the morning sun is the dragon young song, a heaven-like voice which hammers me into hell, a place where a gong of bronze is tolled to warn me of the danger of the dragon's spell. The hair of his head was rain-engendered gold. I touched it with my hand, not heeding the gong that yelled insanely as the flames took hold, scorching my fingers, scalding his tender mind, and making his eyes go dull like those of old crones who know that ruined life is long, who know that pearls are worthless once they're sold. The charm works like a goblin's curse, still strong, though long ago that black-flamed fire declined. I seem to see no faces in a city throng, save those whose eyes are black as rain-washed coal. Though desire flails me like a flint-edged thong, and makes me long to own the light I see enshrined, I know the checkered black and white of right and wrong. I walk on knife-edge ridges. My footpaths wind through perilous hills. A sniggering troll walks in my shadow. But I've yet to find another way of walking. A safer road has nothing wonderful. No other kind of life could so enchant. Danger is the goal, and danger is the contract I have signed. The young are leaders. They have chained my soul, yet I have hammered out an iron distant code in the black stone of my heart. Now my role is urging them towards the brightest ways that wise men have invented. Though I stole a tender diamond once, that searing episode taught me that shining waters often hide a shoal. The dragon young know nothing of the toad that lurks behind my smile. They cannot raise the curtains of my mind to see the poison load of lust that taints my thoughts. A brittle shell conceals my mildewed brain, and in this mode I know the hypocrite I am, the milk thin glaze, the mine that could but never must explode. The eyes of the young are black, and still they blaze and singe my patience. I would love to tell them how I love their eyes, and how they craze me with their dew-tongued voices. Yet I am consoled, knowing their eyes can shine, and that they'll praise the moral causeways I can build them. I now dwell in equilibrium through my dragon-haunted days. She-dragons. I know a cold dragon is coiled in the steel heart of every woman, he said, and its eyes are glittering diamonds, which reveal none of the inner beauty I expect. For I know the horn-rimmed diamonds conceal unmeltable hardness. You who idolize blindly will never understand what I can feel. I know that stars of genuine beauty never rise in a woman's heart. Many a night has trekked along forlorn pathways where the final prize is nothing more than satiation. What he gains is soon lost, for he who tries to keep the favour he has won is checked by a glass-eyed dragon in a woman's guise. She-dragons are black rocks that have wrecked innumerable ships, whose timbers rot now in fruitless waters. No one can resurrect the dead, and the living dead are so far fallen, all I can do is reflect in silence, knowing that woman is not a paragon or a pearl I can respect. These are the dark words of a man who shot an arrow into the sun with a bow strung with self-conceit, only to blot out sunshine forever from his days. For being young, he foolishly forgot she-dragons love to be loved, and did not know they condemn all who try to change the plot. She-dragons curse me now. Wherever I go, I sense the hatred in the sleet-cold gaze of women. And the older and colder I grow, the more I can understand their scorn. I am not a lovable man, and the slow, misanthropic flame makes my own eyes blaze with dragon diamonds, fierce as wind-driven snow. Now, therefore, I have no will to praise a woman, for I know the she-dragons have sworn to condemn me forever to the freezing sprays of winter-founded breakers. And the keel of my ship is broken. No one can raise my sails again. Alone I hear the forlorn crying of terns that haunt my ocean ways. But irony sounds out a long halloo on a horn of iron. Mad, blue-black gulls reel yelling through his mind, telling him he was born of woman, though it's woman he denies. Loving life, but not birth, he is torn between this hatred and the splendid appeal of a world where no rose survives without a thorn. Tree dragons. A tree dragon grows old slowly. It may even fail to die. Yet, threatened with extinction, it makes instant decisions. When I try to move a frail old weeping cherry tree in my garden to a new site in the wrong season, many of the leaves turned pale and fell to the ground. But, in spite of my mistakes, the tree's deep-dwelling genius could prevail. For the dragon in a stricken tree never forsakes its leaning towers. It makes plans, and overnight a tender, surprised miracle of green awakes inside the smooth trunk. And in a few years, a sturdy, green-horn stem with leaves takes over from the dying firstborn branches, a bright regeneration, though the dragon's body aches. They know well the best ways to survive. They fight on long after metamorphosis. In spheres other than those they were born in, they delight in demonstrating strength. One may lie low in a galleon timbers. Then, at the shrieking height of a storm, it stretches a wing, or abruptly uprears its horned head, and the ship sinks slowly out of sight. Lying in the grain of a roof beam, another peers down at an echoing banquet, then begins to blow upon the aureole splendour of the chandeliers. At once the hanging banners blaze. Princes deplore the loss of tapestries and heirlooms as the fire veers wildly from room to room, and the flickering glow is reflected far afield in a peasant's tears. But only the bitter ones destroy. Others show proficiency in art. When violin strings soar through hushed halls in lachrymose adagio, maestros in the wood, not players, make the sound. And sometimes carved mahogany statues are so lifelike they seem to be nodding. Long before tree dragons fashion things that craftsmen never know. Trees have roots both east and west. On the shore of a lake in Japan, an old couple once found a baby dragon curled up asleep in the hollow core of a green bamboo. And a curious tale is told of how, in an English forest, a woodman saw a puzzled, pale brown dragon walking round a stubborn oak tree, looking for the door. But not all dragons are free. Some are bound fast in the rings of tree trunks and wail in prevailing Welsh sea winds, where pines are wound round themselves like Gorgon's sculptured snakes. And once I saw a staring eye. It frowned from the bowl of a silver birch, a jail more racking than a moss-cold dungeon underground. Passacaglia, a dragon inside my head, sustains a rolling breath of muffled thunder. I shall never know where or when it was born, but I have come to believe it pioneers all the sandstorms in my brains. Browbeaten from within, I often feel it heave its unquiet body between my temples and glare from my eyes, or weep tears with me when I grieve. Or it creeps down inside my fingers to stare at the world through the opaque window panes of my nails, and palpitating there, it throbs behind the contours of my fingertips, urging me to sit down on the wooden chair before my piano keyboard. Then it strains to escape and thunder in the hammer clavier air. For this is a Passacaglia dragon in my veins, a surf-drone basso ostinato. Its foam-grey lips rave with frustration in the tormented lanes of my mind. Like condemned souls in the shades of hell, it longs to be free and complains in the scarlet tunnels of my body and whips my mind into madness, trying to break its chains. I wish I could explain how this dragon strips me of mental calm. Its unrelenting cannonades reverberate in my skull. Then suddenly it rips my firestorm eyes wide open and thrusts a claw out through my outstretched hand and drips from my skin like perspiration. Then it invades the world in search of less abrasive fellowships. It streaks from my hands and eyes to the colonnades of gleaming steel-grey organ pipes that soar like castle towers in the vaulted arcades of a neglected church. And there I fabricate insane toccatas and forge mad fusillades of reckless chords. And behind the dissonant roar, the dragon screams out its bitter tirades. For I do not know the canons of contrapuntal law. The sounds I make are nothing but a spate of unreined, impromptu fugues that pour from my untrained hands and weave futile, tangled skeins of sound that bore through the church's walls and grate on the world's nerve under the stone-flagged floor. And the dragon returns, goading me still to translate its fervent chorales into sound. But I can achieve nothing beautiful. I can never generate a nightingale world of harmony. Despair is the only sound I hear, and I can create only one long, lamenting recitative, and the rumbling dragon burdens never terminate. Sea dragons. Sea dragons, black fathoms down, have more than any godhead master-planned the entire pattern of my mind. Through long ages before I was born, they have sounded their refrain, and no man who has ever heard the roar of surf or has seen breakers expire can forget what he heard then or what he saw. My ancestors heard the sea's tumultuous choir, and their stricken minds could not remain unmoved. Thus now I also hunger after higher reaches of wisdom in the sea. The rolling drum of breakers is the burden I most admire, for while calling those who die to see again, it comforts those whose minds are still on fire. For 20 years I have scourged my brain to coin a stream of diamond words to plumb the depths of the sea. But none of mine contain the fundamental energies that overturn breakers or whip the white dragons that stain the blue lips of the sea's delirium when the wind, clouds, and the moon are all insane. Having failed, therefore, I have come to understand that no man can learn the 7 tongues of the sea unless he is dumb. My songs are fragmentations, dry drops of spray that taste like the scum at the edge of the ebb tide. And since they earn no acclaim, my once inspired mind is numb. I seek now to belong to sea dragon clans. I yearn to be one with the ocean. I have sighed with the plain song surf, impatient to discern meaning in the sounds. I crave to be free from this half-hearted life on land, where I burn with my lifelong longing to stride in the wake of a ship with seagulls crying astern. Looking for clues in the fascinating tide, I sometimes find the salt-bleached branch of a tree, and then I rage with envy that it died and tossed its emerald into the green jaw of a sea dragon. If only I now could slide down in the tumbling waters and share the glee of spray and breakers in their endless suicide. But such joy will never come to me. I'll not see the ferns on the ocean floor. I have to cling to the scree walls of inland castles. My one desire is this, that when I die, I may be sent out in a burning ship from the shore, like a Viking lord to the crying dragons of the sea.